All right, we are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. As you see, we're talking about transgender, the bathroom bill right now being considered here in Tennessee and across the country, other states doing it. Marissa Richmond's with us. She's with the Tennessee Transgender Political Coalition. Okay, they're against this bill. The bill, proposed by Representative Susan Lynn was not able to make it with us this morning, but certainly invite them to join in the conversation if they can call in, and your calls too. We can get to that as well. Now, I want to bring up just one question about the idea, at least when we're dealing with adults, or some critics of this will say, and give you a chance, that someone might try to use this to have some guy who really wants to just go into the women's bathroom to pretend that he's transgender. What do you say to those types, to get access and be able to look at these naked women when he...
Well, first off, if they're just doing it just for that purpose, there are already laws on the books for stalking, for rape, for physical assault, and none of those laws has ever been overturned by any non-discrimination ordinance or any non-discrimination policy that's ever been adopted anywhere. A transgender person would, as part of the coming out process and transitioning, you're assuming a role full-time in that preferred gender, in that natural gender for that person. And so it's not like they're just going to sort of dress up in a silly wig or makeup to go into a restroom just to peek or to try to harass women.
And I guess they could do that anyway right now, regardless of what happens, right?
Yes, and I don't know how often it happens, but certainly there's nothing right now stopping a person from doing that other than the law and the fact that they would be prosecuted, and the transgender community would not stand for that. We would insist that those people be prosecuted to the extent of the law.
Let's go to Ann. Ann, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Ann.
I have two things I really want to emphasize. One being, I spent 20 years working in metro high schools, and I can assure you sex and hate crimes do not get reported, and I spent the last 20 years regulating bathrooms, and opening up this bill will bring on more hate crimes and more sex crimes in our metro bathrooms to both male and female transgender, because there is no way to regulate it. You cannot put a policeman at a bathroom door to protect who goes in there once they walk in there, especially locker rooms during basketball, football, soccer games. And those crimes have been taking place in our metro schools for years. They have not been reported because they do not want it on the books as hate and sex crimes. The other thing is if these children were adults, they would not be allowed to represent themselves as what they were not born as. It's something we cannot forget. Children don't understand what transgender are. Middle school may be able to begin to understand what they are. High schoolers are vicious against transgender. And you will have boys who think they're men perpetrating crimes against transgender males, and you will have the same against women. There's no way to regulate this safely.
I don't know really, regulate safely. Transgender students have, regardless of even this genesis of this legislation, probably faced their share of...
Yes, there was well, Ann raises some good points, that their bullying and harassment has already taken place. There was a national study done in 2011, and according to that study, the National Transgender Discrimination Survey, of Tennesseans who responded, 91% report they were harassed in K through 12 schools. The national average was 78%, so it's much higher in Tennessee. That same study showed 48% of transgender students experience physical assault. Again, that's higher than the national average of 35%. And this is leading not just to more withdrawals, dropping out, but even higher rates of suicide among trans youth.
So do you think this legislation, if it were to pass, would make it worse for them?
I agree with Ann. It would actually make things worse, yes, and that's part of our opposition. It's why we have some children's safety groups like Advocates for Women's and Kids Equality, the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence are opposing this bill, and the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network is also opposing this bill because, again, they recognize this will actually increase the harassment, increase the bullying, increase the assaults, and thus increase the dropouts and increase the suicide rates.
You know, true, as this comes along, and it's nice to get something on the books, especially at the younger ages, but I'm just thinking, I've probably been in bathrooms before where I would just bet there's been transgender males. And I had no idea. Not that why would I know? I mean, if they're dressing like a male and it appears that way, and so, I'd have no clue.
And men's rooms have stalls. They'll go in, they'll close that door and take care of their business, and nobody's going to know. And that's what this is all about, is that trans people, they're saying they want to protect privacy. Trans people say this would actually violate their privacy because, as Ann pointed out, someone would have to police those doors. And, you know, McGavick High School right here in Davidson County has over 3,000 students. And we've got universities with multiple buildings, NTSU and TSU right here in Middle Tennessee with multiple buildings, multiple bathrooms. So who's supposed to police that? Are we going to start hiring people? And where's the money for that going to come from? That's Tennessee taxpayers would have to pay for that.
You know, this just makes, again, bills like this, you know, regardless of how you feel about the issue, political, you know, but...
Yes, we know. We understand. It's an election year.
Yeah, no, I'm against it. Yeah, but as far as the schools, would you venture to guess there are transgender students in every single high school in Middle Tennessee?
Probably. Almost certainly. I don't have a specific number, but we talk to people in metro schools all the time, and they're saying we're seeing this more and more. And in particular, as I pointed out, we're starting to see it at earlier ages. They're coming out in middle schools now, and in a handful of cases, even in elementary. And so as we're getting down to those levels, those teachers and those counselors and principals are saying, well, we never thought we'd never have to deal with it at this level, and now they're starting to deal with it.
Let's take a call from Michael real quick before we have to take our next break. Hi, Michael.
Hey.
Hey, go ahead.
I'm the co-chair of P.2 Nashville, which is a support group for parents, families, and friends of LGBT people. Mm-hmm. And I want to refute what the last caller said. We are seeing kids as young as 6 years old coming out in elementary schools. And when this child actually came out in the elementary school, the children didn't care. They knew exactly what it was. They understood that this child, who they knew by a female name, was no longer going to go by that female name. They were going to go by a male name. And they didn't have any problems with it whatsoever. And as far as how many kids are in different schools, we see 20 to 30 trans kids come in every month that are from all different districts that are touching Davidson County. We primarily serve the Nashville-Davidson County area. We have another chapter in Franklin. They're seeing people from all over there. So these kids are in these schools. They're already there. They're already experiencing discrimination and stuff, and this is just going to open up the door to even more.
Interesting. Listen, as we go to the break, and thank you for your call, I can totally believe that. I mean, what I think so much of maybe some of the concern about this transgender issue is that it comes down to body parts and sex and all this, and a 6-year-old, there's no sexuality there between 6-year-olds. They don't know, they don't care, and they're not really aware of it. But it's again, it seems like it's more the adults and the parents, as you say, maybe, that have more concerns about this. And again, it goes toward the sexuality, maybe. And no one's saying this has anything to do with any kind of sexual promiscuity or anything, correct?
Right.
I just want to make sure we're very clear on that.
Right. Yeah, this is about a gender expression, gender identity, not about sexual orientation, not about who they're attracted to, but how a person simply feels about themselves. People change their hairstyle. We wear eyeglasses versus contacts. Well, maybe we straighten our teeth or whiten our teeth. We do all sorts of things to change our appearance, to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. And that's all this is about.
All right, listen, on that note, I want to put out the number again, 737-7587. Is it, again, by the way, the bill making its way through the legislature still, right? Do you know what the status is of it right now?
Yesterday, it was in a House subcommittee. We waited 3.5 hours, and they didn't get to it, so we got
Such is life on the Hill.
So we got rolled till next Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, so we'll see how that goes. Listen, if you want to join in the conversation, if you're on hold, stay there. We'll get to your phone calls, be back with more on this, and get into more of the details, which I find fascinating. Yeah. Right after this, stay with us.